What a terrific result for the Swans in enemy territory. Against the odds, they got it done. You know, you just cannot write the Swans off. This is the Swans Blog's SwansCast, the number one Sydney Swans fans podcast.
You know, it started in the centre of the ground in that last quarter, and our leaders were fantastic, stood up in the big moments, and led by Josh, who was enormous in that last quarter, and I think everyone got on board with it.
In this week's episode, we will be discussing the review of the Sydney Swans' come-from-behind win against the Cats on Saturday afternoon. We'll give you our Monday champion and villains. We'll wrap up the game. We'll give you a quick wrap of the Swans NEAFL result, and Rowan will answer questions in our 3-minute scramble. I'm Justin Mitchell, and with me is SwansCast regular Rowan McKenzie. Rowan, how are you, mate?
Oh, pretty good after that weekend, Justin. Thanks for having me on again. It's good to be on under slightly better circumstances than last time, I think. Last time I was on
better
after the Port game, so this is definitely a happier occasion.
Oh, no doubt, mate. The weekend was a sensational result.
It was pretty good. It was almost unbelievable, where we found ourselves in that third quarter. So
yeah, the comeback was a really good one.
Yep.
Now, starting off today, we've got a new format. Our very first point is top of the agenda. So we've got a couple of points I want to go through. So first one is Richmond have won 12 on the trot at the G. You know, their game plan looks finals foolproof. What do you think about Richmond at the moment?
Yeah, I was still a bit sceptical going into the season. Thought they might have been another Western Bulldogs one-year wonder. But
yep.
They seem to keep getting the job done, and they seem to be running out the games pretty well. Whether that's down to the small forward line, a bit better fitness. Not too sure, but they seem to be just smashing teams late on and just running away with it. So they're definitely probably the team to catch at the moment.
They certainly have run away. If you look at the last two games, they kicked 7 in the last quarter against Melbourne and they kicked 8 against Collingwood. They have been absolutely tremendous in the final quarters. And they've got a game plan, a style of play, I guess, that is suited perfectly to the G. And it always looks like they don't expend that much energy to actually play defensively. It's like they're playing 18 behind the ball all the time.
Yeah, I think Hardwick's sort of, brought in a new innovation, a bit like Clarko a few years back. Something new comes in, takes a couple of years for other teams to sort of catch on and to learn how to nullify it. So, yeah, they're winning a few games again this year, and they're going to be there come September, unfortunately. So.
Absolutely. I think Rocket Eve might have something to say. I think he called it the flood back in 96.
Yeah, the flood in 96. He got us to a granny, so can't complain about that one.
No, I can't complain, and they won a grand final on the back of it. Now, Nick Newman, he travelled with the squad on a Saturday. He hasn't played much this year. He's had 2 games, and he hasn't been particularly good. Now, you look at the players like Ling and Stoddard in the NEAFL. Rowan travelled with the Swans squad, and he looks like he could make a breakthrough debut soon. What do you make of Nick Newman at the moment? He's 25 years old and he hasn't played 50 games yet.
Yeah, he's one of my favourites. I always go into bat for him. I just like the fact that he's got those good kicking skills coming out of defence. He's had a few solid seasons in the NEAFL. Had a crack last year, was pretty good. But he was pretty ordinary when he came in for his game this year. So I can understand they dropped him. He was pretty poor, actually. No defensive efforts.
Yeah.
Pretty ordinary with his disposal efficiency too. I think he couldn't hit a target, and that's what his game's based on. So I think he probably has to go back, put a few good games in the NEAFL, and just hope that no one else takes that spot and plays well.
Yeah. Well, you look at Ling and Stoddard, they're certainly improving as pretty much every match goes on. Ling was among the better 5 or 6 for the Swans in their NEAFL loss. We're going to talk about that a bit later on. But Newman, certainly, he has a bit of competition to get back in the side.
Yeah, competition's only good. I mean, it brings out the best in them all. So I think we'll see Newman go back to his best and sort of get his way back into the team probably midway through the year, because he's a vital part. Can hit up a target coming out of the back 50.
Yeah, he is, and he can play like a number of roles as well. He can play forward, he can play centre on the wing, or he can play in defence. But another one who can play a number of roles is Alir. So he's had a few fitness issues over the last year or so. Luke Parker, he was speaking to the Sunday Footy Show on Channel 9 in the morning. And also, that was Kennedy. And then Luke Parker talked to the Channel 7 one, I think it was, like
game
later
day,
on in the
game
afternoon.
Day, I think it's called.
Yeah, game day, that's right, yep. And he said that basically Alir just needs to string some games together. at the moment, his fitness is an issue. He had a number of issues with injuries last year. He couldn't even get pretty much 2 or 3 games in a row at one point. So what do you make of Aaliyah?
Yeah, I think he's been a bit of a victim of some poor selection this year. I mean, they brought him in for the first game, played forward, and he's probably, he had no idea what he was doing. Then got dropped for some crazy reason when the NEAFL didn't have a game, so he couldn't get some consistent footy. I do feel a bit for him. He's got what it takes, but I'm just a bit scared he's going to throw the toys out of the cot and want to come back home to West Coast if he doesn't start getting regular footy. So let's see if he can put a few games together in the NEAFL, come back in, because we saw towards the end of 2016 he was one of our key defenders, and the injury before the grand final probably had a big say in what happened. So.
Oh, totally agree. I think that's a given. He was one of our best defenders for the last 12 or 13 games he was actually playing for the Swans. He was a revelation. And I suppose the worst thing with the NEAFL result was he actually looked like he hurt his ankle, I believe, in the second or third quarter. So it's really unfortunate for him at the moment. He's played always unfit or out of form in the senior team. He goes back to the NEAFL, he injures himself, or he's got no confidence. He's pretty much a victim of being selected at the very worst time. Now, speaking of players who have been selected at the wrong time or had their luck come their way, Callum Sinclair, the Chief, mate, his development this year has been out of this world. If there was a AFL trophy for most improved, he would be getting it leaps and bounds ahead of every other player in the league. I would say that his first 6 rounds of this season are better than Kurt Tippett's first 8 in 2016 when he was rocking himself. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think I wrote an article for the blog, it might have been at the start of the year, over to you, Chief. And yeah, over to you, Chief, and he's taken it with both hands. I think Dean Cox has a lot to be credited for his improvement. He's come across, obviously Cox is one of the better ruckmans of the last 10, 15 years. And now Sinclair is just, twice the ruckman he was last year. He's not going forward as much, obviously, because of the Naismith injury, but he's getting it done around the ground. Second efforts are still there. Plenty of hit-outs. Stood up in the last quarter on the weekend and really had a big part to say in the comeback. So he's...
he was massive. His first and last quarters in that game were massive, but we're going to talk about that a bit later on. So our debutant on the weekend, Ben Ronk, he had a pretty good game. 2 goals, got a couple of scramble goals, the first in the last quarter. But for me, the player of the match that he was involved in was fronting up Zach Tui in the 3-quarter time break and starting a melee. I thought that was brilliant. He got fined $1,500 in his first match. Jack came in, flew the flag. He got fined $1,000 as well. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. What did you think of Ronk's game and his melee?
Yeah, I mean, he had a ripper first quarter. I think he laid probably 4 tackles. I was keeping track of his fantasy scores. He was up around the 40-odd on debut in his first quarter, so that's
bloody good.
Yeah, that's good. Finished with 7 tackles, I think. Showed that he wasn't scared to get in a bit of a dust-up when gave it to Tui. And just on that, I'm not sure what he finished with, maybe a dozen possessions, but just his pressure around
15, I think.
15, the pressure 15,
around the contest. 8 contested as well.
Yeah, I mean, he came...
And 7 tackles.
Came into the team known for his forward pressure, and yeah, I mean, he took the next step and did it on the AFL stage, which is always the question. But I think...
Absolutely.
But I think he's going to be great going forward.
Yeah, I think he will be as well. I think his spot in the team is guaranteed after that performance. Yeah. I said running up to the match, I don't know what to expect from him because he is capable and he's showing glimpses in the NEAFL. He's kind of faded and out. But if he could have a Papley-like debut, yeah, beautiful. He's a lock. And he really did. He had a sensational debut. Now, the match review officer handed out, obviously, the fine to Ronke and Jack. He had a look at Heaney. Heaney was graded as okay. Basically, the motion of the tackle, he didn't dump him. Hall and Smith was already going to the ground and he was tackled from underneath. Now, the latest news from the Swans is Franklin and Hanbury are still unlikely to be available on the weekend. So Franklin's got the bruised heel, which he suffered against the Eagles in round 1. And Hanbury has still got the groin complaint, which is minor strain. He had the groin complaint last year, osteitis pubis, and yeah, this year is not too good. Malik can also test, Towers a test. So that's it for top of the agenda. Now, we've got our new segment debuting tonight. It is called Monday's Moment of Madness. Now, this is my little segment, Rowan, and for this one, I have gone for an Australian sports kind of issue. Not a football one, but one I think most Australians can relate to and probably sympathise with. And that is Ricciardo and Verstappen's battle when Ricciardo crashed into Verstappen when battling for fourth on the 40th lap of the Azerbaijan Formula One Grand Prix.
Well, funnily enough, I'm actually watching a replay right now on lap 36, so I'll probably get a running commentary.
Prepare to be spoiled. So, look, what's happened is they've been battling it out and duking for the entire race. Verstappen has prevented Ricciardo from passing, and they've touched wheels and they've bumped a few times. And then Ricciardo gets a massive run on him down the straight. He goes to move on the outside. Verstappen covers on the outside, and then he goes, right, I've got this on the inside, and Verstappen just cuts across the inside, hits the brakes, and Ricciardo just slams into the back of him. It wasn't even a racing line. It was an absolutely disgraceful racing move. The rules state that you can only move across once in the braking lane,
correct,
and he moved across twice. Now, Red Bull's come out and said both drivers are at fault. That's true. They are. But that guy is a dangerous driver. He is an absolute danger on the track. He's going to get someone hurt bad. He has had a terrible start to the season. He's hit Vettel. I think he hit Vettel like twice or three times in the last Grand Prix alone. He hit Hamilton twice in the last Grand Prix, and he's hit him three times already this season, and he's spun him once. He's a dangerous driver. He is a menace on the road, and he said this about 4 times already this season. I will learn from this, and I will make sure it doesn't happen again. What happens? 20 laps later, just smack straight into a car again. He is an idiot. I would be very happy if he wasn't racing Formula One or got suspended slides. So
yeah, I follow the Formula One quite closely. He's definitely aggressive. He has got the talent, but yeah, you're right. He does make silly mistakes, immature mistakes. He's got the raw speed. And it doesn't help when you've got the commentary team obviously favouring him, telling him how great he is and sort of covering up, whereas you get Roman Grosjean does the same thing last year and they're all over him. So similar.
He hasn't got the pedigree.
No
pedigree
similar
there.
drivers. Verstappen, quicker obviously, but the same silly moves. They've got to wonder, do they harness it or do they rein him in? I mean, if they rein him in, does he slow down? Not too sure, so I think Red Bull's got a few things to sort out.
They do. Yeah, they do. Now, moving on, we've got our Monday champions. So, Monday champions and Monday villains. Rowan, could you please give us your Monday champion?
Monday champion has to be Josh Kennedy.
Oh, beautiful. Please tell why.
Pretty much monstered the last quarter. I'm not sure what the stats were, but, I mean, you could just see him just taking control of the game. Meanwhile,
he had 13 disposals and 6 clearances in the last quarter.
Meanwhile, the commentators
were
still harping on about Dangerfield, the Geelong cream rising to the top. And meanwhile, Kennedy's just, taking the game scruff of the neck, taking it single-handedly away from the Cats with a good support from Sinclair as well. But Kennedy without Kennedy, we lose that game. Simple.
Yeah, that was an all-time great final quarter performance. I'm not sure you're going to see many better final quarter performances than that. 13 disposals, 6 clearances, 3 of them centre. Geelong got the first clearance of that final quarter, and then after that, just bang, just dragged them. In the first quarter as well, Kennedy and Sinclair were massive.
Yeah, and I think also, coming off a couple of down weeks, we all wanted to see him sort of do something this week, and geez, he came back into form pretty well. So let's just hope that he keeps it up. And
absolutely. He silenced those critics, that's for sure. Now, I have a Monday champion, and we've kind of discussed him already in the start of the show. It is Callum Sinclair. The Chief. Now, as I said before, I think his first 6 rounds have been better than Kurt Tippett's at the start of 2016, and Kurt Tippett's 2016 start was absolutely phenomenal. He was arguably one of the best ruckmen, not even just a ruck forward, but ruckman in the league. Sinclair has had literally no support whatsoever for the entire season. Naismith went down with an ACL before the season even started. Kurt Tippett retired. Darcy Cameron hasn't even debuted. Marty hasn't even debuted. He's had to play Towers, and Towers does a pretty good job, but he's had no support. He has only been beaten once, and that was by Jacobs last week. He had a sensational first quarter. He had a game-high 9 disposals up to quarter time. I think he had about 13, 14 headouts. And Stanley was just having his pants pulled down and wrapped around his head. He was having an absolute bath of that first quarter. Went off with a cut. Had a bit of a down middle quarters. Came back and absolutely smashed him in the last quarter. He had, I think it was another 6 or 7 disposals, another half dozen hit-outs. He had 3 clutch marks, and he was phenomenal. Just kept on smacking it down Kennedy's throat. Mate, I am proud of him, and I'm proud to sponsor him.
Yeah, I think the knock on him has always been he can't really hit out to advantage, but on the weekend he's just fed it down Kennedy's throat whenever he wanted to. So hopefully, more of the same.
He showed Stanley how to play. He gave Stanley a football lesson, that's for sure, and I didn't even expect that. But, mate, who was your Monday villain?
Monday villain, it's a bit hard to go past Chris Scott for his ludicrous comments after the game, blaming the matchday report on affecting his players' morale or his performance.
And that was Murdoch as well.
Jordan Murdoch, yeah. So he's cleaned up Heaney. And then Scott's had a bit of a whinge, like he does, like he and his brother does, I guess, after every game that they don't win.
They
make a bit of a habit of it. So I think, what do you say, it highlights the absurdity of matchday reports.
Putting
pressure on umpires to feel like they have to intervene in split-second moments, really unfair on them, blah, blah, blah.
It's a load of crap.
Pull your head in, Chris Scott. Swans were a better team in the last quarter. We won the game. Had nothing to do with the matchday report, so there you go.
I thought it was just a load of shit. Deflecting as usual. Blame it on someone else. It's never his fault, never his player's fault. He's got to shift the blame. And I've umpired for about 6 or 7 years in my earlier years. You need the matchday reports because they can control players. If players know they're reported, they're going to behave. It was an accident. Probably wasn't a reportable offence, but the umpire thought so. So,
if a player's that mentally weak that he lets that control the rest of his game, then he shouldn't be playing AFL.
Agreed.
FYI, the Verstappen crash just happened, and that was ridiculous.
It really was, wasn't it?
That was pathetic. Also, just back to sorry about that. Just back to Scott.
Yep.
One of the funny things he said was, on removing matchday reporting, he said yes, and I think I'm in the majority of logical thinkers. So
I don't agree with that.
It doesn't get any better. It's just.
No, he's a bit over the top for my liking. Now, I have a villain, and I think you're going to love this one. It is none other than former Swan Tim Membry at St Kilda.
Members.
Oh, now, this, it is quite possibly the worst shot for goal I have ever seen in my life. He's gathered the ball about 20, maybe 25 metres out. He's running into an open goal square. He's literally 2 metres out from goal. And then I don't even know what he attempts to do. He drops the ball and barely makes contact with the ball and just cannons it straight into the post. This was worse than Josh Bruce's poster last season against Hawks at the same venue when they were up by about 60, 70, 80 points or something like that. It was a horrendous shot at goal. They had a crack at it on bounce, and it wasn't a dribble kick. The guys just said, "No, dreadful, the worst kick they've ever seen for goal."
Yeah, well, the Saints are making a bit of a habit of that, so I'm sure Dunster would have went off his head.
Yeah, they have. Now, let's get our question from our listeners going on. So, the question that we had this week is Plan B overrated? Now, obviously, there's been a lot of debate recently about the whole Plan B and whether or not John Longmire can adjust. It's been a bit over the top, would you agree?
To an extent, yes. I still think he needs to be able to adapt if things aren't working, but Plan A works pretty well most of the time, so
certainly does.
Don't fix it.
Now, Joshua from Facebook, he said Plan B isn't overrated. Plan B is a euphemism for making a change when something isn't working. That's fair enough. That's a good point. Now, Heather from Twitter, she said, if Plan B involves a 7-goal last quarter, absolutely not overrated.
Yep, that's not a bad plan. So, well done, Heather.
And Steve from Twitter said, I think it's all about the effort put in. If there's pressure, you'll force mistakes, take advantage of those, and you'll kick 8 goals to 1 in the fourth quarter when everyone's tired. I think that's a pretty good point.
A valid point
because Parker and Longmire came out after the match and they said the main difference was it wasn't words at halftime. Even Kennedy said it as well, straight after the match. There wasn't any fires at halftime. It wasn't a ripping. It was basically just get back to basics, win the hard ball, tackle hard, loose ball gets, etc., so forth, and they fought their way back into the game.
That's right. I mean, Swans play their best when the intensity's up, so just goes to show in that last quarter.
Now, our weekend review, mate, we've got obviously a very good Sydney Swans win. They burst out of the blocks early in the game, so they kicked 4 goals to 2 in the first quarter. They could possibly have kicked more than 4 goals in the first sort of quarter and a bit. They should have probably been about 6 or 7 goals. Geelong, they worked their way back into the game and they kind of dominated for about a 30-40 minute patch. The Swans kind of held firm, but then the Swans just went bang in the last quarter and ran over the top.
Yeah, I was a bit worried heading into that last quarter. We started the game well, a few goals up, and I thought, how good's this? Another Cattery bloody manslaughter. So, and then second quarter, I think, was it just the one behind for the entire quarter?
Yeah, that was when Parker kicked it into the man on the mark,
right, yes.
Inexplicably from about 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bit of a brain fade. But then the third quarter wasn't a lot better. I think we still went into the break, 22 points down, or thereabouts?
Yeah, we had that fluke goal on the goal line between Heaney and Hayward too.
Yeah, I'm not too sure whether... Has that gone to Heaney or has that gone to Hayward?
No, it's gone to Hayward because it was about 1.5 centimetres. It was literally like a centimetre or 2 on the line still when Hayward got his boot.
Yeah,
that's how
and it was
close
good to hear Eddie Maguire still trying to, trying to claim favouritism towards the Swans for that decision. So, cheers, Eddie.
Yep.
Stick to your unauthorised ads on Facebook, mate.
Now, look, it was a pretty unorthodox forward line, I think most people would agree. The Swans started with Parker, Rowan and Heaney as their tall forwards. In the first quarter, it just threw the cats out. They didn't have Taylor and they didn't have Henderson, and obviously you're looking at some of the other ones like Lonergan and Mackie who have retired. Blitzars was isolated at fullback, and he just had a bit of an awful match. He looked pretty bad at fullback.
Yeah, I can't really understand. I mean, later in the game when Kennedy was monstering him, I probably would have put Blitzars onto Kennedy. He's got the height, he's got the pace, he's got the the stamina. It was. I mean, they talk about Horse being a bit of a useless coach, but I mean, Scott didn't really make any changes in that last quarter. He's probably too busy watching replays of the matchday report.
Report, yeah.
Maybe his performance went down after the report, and he's just trying to blame Murdoch. But it was
smashing phones and punching walls.
Yeah, pretty ordinary from Scott to not sort of make a change there.
Yeah, it was, but I think Sydney were just well on top of the midfield. Dangerfield couldn't get a foothold, Selwood couldn't, Duncan was beaten. The amazing thing was between Selwood, Dangerfield and Duncan, they had 14 clearances, and Josh Kennedy had 13.
Yeah, and just back on to Dangerfield, probably the highlight of the match for me was, I think it was at Hayward, might have tackled him onto the wing, absolutely crunched him, smashed him into the ground. Gave it to him afterwards. Beautiful. That's just... If that doesn't put a smile on every Swans fan's face, then I'm not sure what will.
It was lovely.
That was probably moment of the year so far for me.
And speaking of which, I should really go back and put that highlight up on Twitter. So let me just take a note of that.
That was
writing
that
down
there with
now.
Dean Towers getting dacked. That's highlight for me.
Yeah, there's quite a few highlights from that match, but that was right up there. I loved it, just the way he's pushed him back in and given him lip. Beautiful. Now, we've talked about Sinclair. He absolutely smashed Reece Stanley in the ruck. When he went off the field with that cut, obviously Stanley got back into the game. And at one point, early in the third quarter, he actually had almost 70 fantasy points. He was doing really well. But then that last quarter from Sinclair was absolutely massive. It was one for the ages. He was phenomenal. He rucked the entire last quarter. He didn't come off at all. Fox pinch hit for about 5 minutes while Sinclair rested forward. But other than that, he was absolutely crucial up there with Kennedy for winning that.
Yeah,
win that game.
Yeah, he was a little bit quiet in the second and third. I mean, it wasn't poor by any stretch, but he was a little bit quiet. But he came back to life in the last, and along with Kennedy, just shaped the outcome and got the win for us.
Yeah, he certainly did. Dangerfield, he started forward. He was forward for about a quarter and a bit. They switched him into midfield, but still he couldn't really get into the game. You just have to look at Scott Selwood and wonder how big of an out he was, including some of the other players who were missing as well. But every time him and Selwood went near it, you had Jack, Parker, Jones and Heaney just smashing him into the turf. Oh, it was beautiful in the last quarter, just watching 2 or 3 of them drive him literally headfirst into the ground nearly every single time he got the ball.
Yeah, that's right. The intensity was there, and that's what we want to see every week. Guys like Jack might not be as quick as they used to be, or have that explosive power or two-way running, but as long as they're around the contest, put the pressure on.
Yep.
That's all you can ask, really. And I think Jack's been unfairly criticised. I mean, he hasn't been great, but he's doing enough to keep his spot.
Yeah, I gave him a decent rating because I thought he was pretty important with his pressure. His disposal at the moment, it's certainly pretty poor, and it definitely needs to improve. He's going at 50%, and last week he went at 50%, and he only had 13 disposals last week, but he had 6 turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, we look a lot into that sort of stuff, but I think Dane Swan, Matt Prittis won Brownlows with poor efficiency, it just goes to show you've got pressure around the contest. Come finals time, I want Kieran Jack in the team, so...
Yeah, he's definitely still in the best 22. He's probably still in the best dozen or so. If you just look at his pressure stats are absolutely phenomenal. He had 9 tackles for the Swans, which was absolutely fantastic. That was a team high. Yep, game high, 9 tackles. He had a number of pressure acts as well, and he had 5 clearances. So it was a far improved performance for someone who only played 3/4 of the game, 70% game time.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's got to make up for what he's lost, and he's still got that intensity around the contest. So one of the first picked every week, I'd still assume. Yeah,
I would think so too. The Swans' last quarter was absolutely impressive. It was quite phenomenal, actually. And looking back at the stats, you know how Bounce loved the numerology thing?
Yep.
You get like numbers lining up. They had one where they had, at 15 minutes 30 of the second quarter, the score was 15-30. Now, I got another one here, which is just from the stat sheets alone. Centre clearances for the match was 16-5 in the Swans' favour. Clearances in the last quarter was 16-5 in the Swans' favour.
And I'm guessing Kennedy was probably 95% to thank for that.
Yeah, he had 6 and 3 centre ones, so it was absolutely amazing. Swans also got on top in contested tackles, in the last quarter at least anyway. They finished ahead in tackles, but they did finish 8 behind in contested possessions for the game. But they certainly hit all the stat categories out of the park in that last quarter.
Yeah, it was good to see a return to form, and the Swans of old that we haven't seen for the last couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you have a particular moment of the match?
Moment of the match, I think I've already touched on it. Hayward getting into Dangerfield. That's, I mean, nothing more needs to be said. We just need to get that on repeat. So I'm not sure whether you can get the little video onto Twitter and get it up onto the blog.
Oh, I will. I will. Don't you worry about that. I've got to know.
I'll just have that running on repeat for the rest of the night. Just
That'll be your new profile picture.
That's right. Yes. Might even send one to P. Dangerfield, see how he likes it. So.
It was a bit sour and dry on the Channel 7 footy show yesterday when he was trying to do the interview with Luke Parker. It was a bit funny to watch. He just looked super uncomfortable. Now, my moment of the match, I think, was when Robbie Fox went up and took that spectacular mark at the start of the fourth quarter, and I think that really set the rod in and got the players going.
Yep, that was a ripper mark. Easily, mark of the day.
Oh, yeah.
At a crucial time as well.
And Ben Ronk was fantastic. He got the first goal out the back in the first quarter. I think that was like the third goal of the game. And then he kicked the one that actually, I think, it put us ahead in the last quarter.
Yes, that's not a bad day for the young guy, Unfortunately, his first goal was at the Geelong end, so he sort of gave the fist pump, but it's all in the face of the Cats crowd, so I don't know whether that was but it was good to see all the blokes ran to him. I think Dane Rampy probably ran about 300 metres just to give him a bit of a pat on the head. And, I mean, you look at him on the footage, he just has this sort of a sigh that, now I've got to run all the way back, but, get around
everyone mobbed him. The whole team mobbed him. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And Robbie Fox finished with 2 goals. Hayward finished with 3. He got that goal line 1 in the third quarter, kicked 2 in the last quarter. He should have got a 50-metre penalty for him, obviously not against him, in the last quarter when he took the mark. And I think it was Colin Jasny or Blitzar's just decked him, pushing it back. Florent obviously got the 1 later on when he took the mark, and 2 he nailed him. So I guess that was balanced out at the end. I thought Grundy had a really, really good game. He had, I think, 23 disposals in the back line. He looked like pretty much the only defender at one point in the game who could actually use the ball cleanly. I thought he led the defence brilliantly. But the one thing you notice when you're at the ground is just how chirpy Dane Rampy is in the back line. I thought he led that fantastic as well. So what do you think of the players, mate? How do you think they went?
I think your ratings were pretty spot on. There's been a bit of criticism of Harry Marsh around on the forums, but he only had the 6 touches, but he took a few decent marks. He was solid.
Yeah.
His disposal wasn't great, but I think he's done enough to hold his spot. So, Yeah,
I thought he did defensively. I thought he was a bit better this week than he was last week, and he was able to shut down some attacks and intercept well. Maybe not get the ball, but it'll certainly shut it down.
Yeah, he was solid down back. He didn't get a lot of touches, but you look at a guy like Dan Robinson, only got the 8 touches himself, so he's probably first to go.
And he had 25% disposal efficiency, so that's atrocious. Now, I think my ratings on him were probably about 2 points too high.
Yeah, I think Robbo was probably a little bit generous.
Just a touch, yeah. Look, I think King Kennedy is back. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, 33 touches, 4 tackles. Like you say, all those contested clearances in the last quarter. He's back.
He's definitely back. And one of the best things about watching the replay is when you can actually go back through the quarter time and halftime breaks. They pointed out the fact that Florent absolutely burned Selwood on a lead. It was in the first quarter when Florent got, I think, the second or fourth goal of the quarter. He got the ball on the wing, he kicked it up, and then he just ran forward and eventually got the pass from Jack when it bounced on the point line but stayed in. And we saw Selwood, he was trailing a good 15 metres behind him. He actually ran past Selwood. He was about 5 metres behind Selwood and ran past him.
You know, he's got the pace to burn, and he's working on that body as well. So he's going to be a very decent player. So we've got to rip it there.
Oh, he's going to be very good for us, I think. Now, anything else you'd like to add for the match, mate?
Yeah, I think Zach Jones had a pretty good game. Probably, what did he get? 19, 20 touches. Disposal efficiency was 90%, which is unlike him.
Unlike him,
he's still got his 4 clangers, but you don't want to take that away from him. He's sort of like a young Leo Barry. You don't really know what he's going to do, but you just know and trust that he's going to iron out those silly mistakes when he gets a bit older, and he's going to be a gun for us for the next 10 years.
Well, the only knock on his game was he had 3 free kicks against.
Yeah, the frees against and the silly clangers. I mean, that'll come with age. He'll wipe those out, hopefully. But
I think that sensational goal on the run in the last quarter more than makes up for it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'd pick him every week, but you don't want to.
Yes, definitely.
You don't want to harness that sort of aggression and the ability to take the game on. I think it's something we lack, and he should be, given free rein.
He's spent a considerable amount of time in the midfield as well, so he's pretty much taken over Hanbury's role, or what Kieran Jack's role used to be, as that hard in and under, or even arguably Tom Mitchell's role. Obviously, he's not getting the disposals and the clearances, but he's in there providing a real contest and some real grunt and drive.
Yeah, he spent a bit of time in the midfield. I think he had 3 or 4 inside 50s on the weekend. And I mean, if you're getting 3 or 4 inside 50s running at 90% efficiency, you're gonna hit some targets. So that's all good signs.
And Gary Rowan, he had a couple of really good moments. Unfortunately, his disposal was pretty awful. He had 6 clangers from 11 disposals at 27% disposal efficiency, but he kicked a crucial goal.
Yeah, I'd like to see his 1%ers. I don't know what the stat is there, but it's just the pressure he puts on. He's always head down, running his guts out, trying to chase someone down. It's not all about the stats, obviously, but
never always about the stats. He does the team thing.
Brings that word again, intensity, brings the pressure. So like you said, 27% efficiency, but I'd like to see his 1%ers and his other stats as well to go along with that.
Yeah, he was pretty good overall. Look, let's move on now. Let's have a quick chat about the NEAFL team. So the Suns finally beat the Swans, I think, the first time in 14 games. Last year, the Swans gave them an absolute belting by about 120 or 130 points. This year, obviously, the Swans have a bit of a injury issue. They're missing a lot of senior depth in the NEAFL team, especially since some of those players have been moved on, like Michael Talia, Sam Murray, while other ones have retired, such as Jeremy Laidler. They just dropped short by a bit over a goal, and they had 7 academy players, which I think is pretty good considering. But this is the worst start for the NEAFL team for the season so far. Newman and O'Riordan didn't play, obviously, because they travelled with the team. But Darcy Cameron, not Jeremy Cameron, wrong team. Darcy Cameron, he had probably his best game for the reserve team. He had 24 disposals, 32 hit-outs and 2 goals. He was arguably the best for the Swans. And McCartan impressed as well. But once again, the Swans' Achilles heel came into play. They kicked 2 goals 5 in the last quarter, which is a problem they've had for a few years. 2 grand finals would attest to that. Now, I wouldn't know if you caught this game or not, Rowan, did you?
I caught bits and pieces. It looked like, young Darcy Cameron was doing enough to get a sneaky chance to come in. McCartan also was pretty good from what I saw. So given our injuries up forward, I mean, you never know, could be another smoky.
Yeah, he could be.
But yeah, it just highlights our lack of depth. I mean, it's always been a problem with the Swans the last few years. You get down to that 23rd, 24th player. There's not much coming in. I think guys like Dan Robinson. I think we've had James Rose in the past.
Yeah.
Brandon Jack. They're not really names that endear themselves. So it's good to see.
Well, the other thing is,
it's good to see a few guys standing up.
Yeah, and look, James Rose has got the Brandon Jack issue at the moment. He's actually gone backwards, which I thought wouldn't have been possible. I thought he would have actually pushed on this year. He's suffering from the Brandon Jack curse of getting a bit too me. So just a quick look at the senior team. So we've got Ben Ronk, who played for the seniors. Obviously Newman and O'Rourke travelled. Then you've got Florent, who was a regular last year. Robbie Fox, who was a regular last year. And obviously Dan Robinson. So that's quite a few players. And then you look at the injury list, there's quite a few players out injured as well. But that's enough for the NEAFL. So obviously they need to improve. Darcy Cameron is a chance, but considering his opposition and his previous form, I wouldn't think that he gets selected this week. It would be a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I don't think he's much of a chance. I think McCartan might be a bit more of a chance given our lack up forward. So I was calling for him to come in last week, but shows how much I know with the structure. Won it for us on the weekend. So
I think Aliyah's probably the best one to come in. He played 3 or 4 different roles on the weekend. He played defence, forward, and rock and mid. So he's most likely to want to come in. Now, time for our 3-minute scramble. So it doesn't matter if you take less than 3 minutes, but I'm going to fire off a couple of questions to you. I've got 3 questions. Okay, you ready, mate?
There we go, yeah.
All right, time is starting now. Liam from Facebook asks, does our forward line look better with our body?
Doesn't look better, but maybe it functions better. You've got a once-in-a-generation player. He's got to play, whether it's further up on the wing, a half-forward flank. I'm not too sure, but we definitely looked less predictable, which in turn looks better on the weekend.
Yeah, it does when you've certainly got more options. Now, obviously, the latest injury report coming out of the Swans is that he might not be available this weekend. He's still dealing with his bruised heel.
Yeah, we'll get to see this weekend whether it was a one-off or we can keep that consistency up with this unpredictable forward line. It's all good and well, one game, but can we do it over 3 or 4? Whereas you've got Franklin up there, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get the goals out of him. So, yeah, it's all up in the air at the moment, but we definitely looked a lot better on the weekend, not so buddy-centric.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Zach from Twitter asks, do we stay at the same height against North this week, or should we add another ruckman or key position player to the side?
Personally, I'd bring Aliyah in, down back, and possibly McCartan up forward. Maybe, I don't think we need to make drastic changes, but Aliyah comes in, can pinch hit in the ruck, Sinclair goes forward. Dean Towers, I'm not sure what the deal is with him, whether he's back from his injury or not.
I think he should be ready this week. I've labelled him a test in the injury update. The club hasn't said anything, but last week Longmire said they don't want to risk him this week. He should be okay for this week.
Yes, I'll probably go Robinson out for Towers and Aliyah in for someone else. I probably wouldn't bring McCartan in if that's the case. Just the 2 changes should see us improve.
All right, now this is a bit of an ongoing topic. We've certainly discussed this before. But Joshua from Facebook asks, if Macca finishes the year as good as it has started, should we move him on and get one of the kids in?
No, not at all. He's our best user down back. He's the general. He organises everything. I would love to see him get another 1-year deal if he keeps on this trend. So, no, not for that one.
Now, you think he can go around another year if he doesn't get struck down by the old man injury curse?
Yeah, well, that's the big test, whether he can run out the year and not do his calf towards the end like he did a couple of years back. But if they manage him...
2016.
If the general soreness comes in and he misses a few games mid-year, keep him fresh, I reckon he's worth another year because he's been one of our best all year.
Well, he managed to kick those 2 goals against North Melbourne last year on one leg, basically peg leg, and he nailed it with a done handspring.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the credits in the bank. I've got a lot of time for him. He's done more than enough this year to warrant his spot. He's probably the best user down back with Newman out or out of form, so there's no way I'd play a team without Macca in it.
Beautiful. Well, mate, we've managed that under 3 minutes, 2 minutes 55. Beautiful job. Now it is time to go through our good call, bad call from last week. So on last week's show, we had Stephen Park. Now he has predicted Carlton to win. Not quite, Stephen. That were pretty dreadful. Unfortunately, that's a...
Yeah, Carlton's cooked.
Carlton's cooked. Yeah, they're in full rebuild mode. They've actually admitted it, which is pretty bad and pretty sad, to be honest.
Replays of the Matthew Cruiser Cup from a few years back.
Yeah, that's how bad it is. Now, he predicted Josh Kennedy would have more than 30 disposals, but he said he would go at less than 60%. We're going to give him a half tick. I'm going to have to divide that in two. Give him a tick because he did have 33, but he went at 73%. So that was a sensational game from Josh Kennedy.
Yeah, one of his best games for sure. Single-handedly won us 4 points.
I would agree. One of his best games for the Swans. I said today I thought the win was actually the best Swans win this decade outside of the 2012 Grand Final. I reckon it's the second best win this decade.
Second best win behind the Grand Final, or?
Yeah, behind the 2012 Grand Final against the odds, come back from 22 points down in the third quarter. The first team since 2016 round 10 to beat Geelong at Cardinia Park when trailing at halftime. And just given the team was against the odds, I thought it was just a sensational performance.
Yeah, I mean, we're not used to watching the Swans go in as underdogs these days. I mean, one of the powerhouse teams.
Big underdogs.
We were $3 outsiders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my partner, she cashed in. She put some money in, she cashed in. Now, his third call was Buddy 4 goals. He was rubbed out literally the time we were going through these. So unfortunately, yeah, it didn't work. Now, my predictions was Gary Rowan 5 goals, sorry. I predicted 5 goals.
Far off that one. It's minus 1 point for that.
Minus 1 point, yeah, I think I'll have to do that one. Number 2 was winner would score more than 100 points.
You should know these games, Justin. There's always going to be a slog.
Well, they've been pretty close to 100 points. They've been roughly about 95, 96 points.
Yeah, goal mark usually,
yeah. Apart from that one when we beat them by 130 points a few years back, that was the best thing ever.
That was one of the greatest games I've seen. And I think Chris Scott even blamed the walk from the temporary change rooms that night, didn't he? I think so.
Mate, I thought he blamed the fans at the ground and
he blamed everything. That's just
the officials and the grass and the leaves blowing in the wind.
Just the regular Scott boys.
Scott boys. Yeah, blaming everyone except themselves. Now, I actually got one right for a change. Collingwood on Anzac Day would win by 4 more goals. Yes! Tick! Ding! Beautiful. That's it.
Nice and quick, that one.
It's been absolutely fantastic having you on again, mate. Love having you on all the time.
No worries, Justin. I love coming on, especially after a great win, and it's just good to look around the forums and Facebook and that, and just seeing our Swans fans happy again. I mean,
yes, it's been a bit of a sour and down time recently.
Yeah, we've been spoilt, and we've had our downturn, so that's it. Another 16 straight outdoors.
4-2, can't complain.
That's right.
Now, we are back on Thursday after the teams are released. So this will be we're doing 2 podcasts per week. Thursday is our second podcast. That is called the SwansCast Extra. And in that episode, I'm going to be joined by Stephen Park and Heather Quinlan. And we're going to preview the game ahead. And we're going to look at all the happenings between today and Thursday. So make sure you tune in then for our next episode of the SwansCast. As always, you can get in contact with us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the tag SwansCast. Till next time, go Swans.
Go the Swans.